Hi, and welcome to my presentation. Today, I want to talk about literacy as a means to prevent the spread of misinformation. So, what is misinformation? Most of us have become familiar with the term fake news in recent years. Misinformation is simply inaccurate information. Oftentimes, it is fabricated and spread intentionally to deceive people. An example of misinformation could be something as small as a rumor that was started by a peer. On a much greater scale, though, it could be the assertion that vaccines cause autism. This belief is rooted in falsehood, but by spreading it, more people might accept it as truth, giving diseases the opportunity to wreak havoc on large populations. We can better understand this phenomenon by taking a look at measles. The World Health Organization declared measles to be eliminated within the United States in the year 2000. But if we were to study this graph, we could see that this is no longer true. According to the Center of Disease Control, a majority of these cases were among those who were not vaccinated against measles. So, due to the widespread misinformation perpetuated by anti-vaxxers, measles once again poses a threat to our population. This demonstrates how misinformation doesn't only harm the people who believe it, but their community as a whole. What's interesting is that epidemiologists have studied viral transmissions in an attempt to better understand the spread of misinformation. They considered factors such as individual susceptibility, such as their level of education or partisanship, the likelihood of transmission by looking at how citizens received and interpreted political information, and then, of course, their network structure. They looked at two types of network structures here: small world structures, which would include any acquaintances one might come in contact with, and scale-free networks, such as an essential transit point, much like an airport. They found that misinformation spreads most effectively through small world structures. This is probably due to the level of increased interaction between people and a much higher level of believability during those interactions. Most social networking sites are fertile ground for spreading misinformation. And for many people, these sites have become an essential aspect of everyday life. But the heavy circulation of user-generated content results in an unregulated flow of information. A survey of 551 young adults was used to determine who was at greater risk of falling victim to misinformation online. Researchers considered demographic characteristics, social networking site usage, and their personality factors. Their findings showed that those who had a lower social networking site usage were less likely to engage critically with the information that they encountered. This was especially true amongst Caucasian males, non-Caucasian females, and individuals with a lower need for cognition. This is why it's so important for young adults who decide against seeking a higher education to be extra cautious of the media that they consume. Of course, there are several reasons one might become misinformed, even when they seek out information. One of the main contributing factors to the spread of misinformation is algorithms. In fact, many people are unaware of the existence of algorithms, or the role that they play in curating news feeds, search engines, advertisements, or several other aspects of our online experience. Algorithms are often used to prioritize controversial topics, so that social media websites can generate more views and thus more revenue. Algorithms are not made to reflect accuracy, but rather the pattern of behavior by the users. We must be critical of our own confirmation biases at all times. A critical challenge for modern society is the circulation of misinformation. Users struggle to properly evaluate the quality of the information that they encounter. Informational warfare is not a new phenomenon. Some politicians are notorious for using algorithms to their advantage in order to spew misinformation. These issues lie just outside of any legal jurisdiction, and corporations that control such sites have no incentive to change. This directly threatens the stability of our democracy. A study took a look at social networking site users located within both the United States and India in order to examine the effects of media literacy as a way to decrease the perceived accuracy of misinformation. They did this by exposing certain groups to what they call misinformation interventions. Many of those people were able to successfully recognize certain patterns within media and distinguish fact from fiction. These findings indicate that even the most simple approach to literary advocacy can decrease the believability of misinformation on a global scale. There are various different types of literacy. Media literacy is considered the ability to assess, analyze, and produce information. Information literacy is the framework for understanding, finding, evaluating, and using information. News literacy is essentially the importance of literacy for civic engagement within a democracy. And digital literacy works to highlight the more symbolic, emotional, and persuasive aspects presented within digital media. Many researchers have determined that literacy is a crucial component in the fight against misinformation. So by teaching and employing certain literary skills, individuals are more likely to recognize and resist misinformation as they encounter it. Educational outreach is paramount, especially in times of national unrest or during a global pandemic. Some experts have utilized social networking sites to combat misinformation head-on. One such example is the use of tutorials. A tutorial has been characterized by a collection of threaded tweets that have an educational purpose to engage with an audience. Tutorials have been effective for confronting misinformation because of their ability to respond quickly and accurately, preventing the spread much faster than more traditional methods. In the wake of a misinformation epidemic, it is imperative that we all do our part. On an individual level, we should be sure to fact-check, trace and verify our sources, employ lateral reading whenever possible, do our best to recognize any emotional responses, and be able to successfully identify structural characteristics of misinformation. We need to remain diligent in the pursuit to stop the spread of misinformation. Not only is this a civic responsibility, but it could quite literally be the difference between life and death for some people. And remember, it's okay to admit that you do not have enough information to speak on a particular subject. It's also okay to change your mind, because our opinions should evolve when we are presented with new information. This is how we grow as individuals. Make sure that you're doing your part in creating a more informed world. Thank you.